There are nights when everything goes quiet, but your mind doesn't. You're surrounded by people, yet something inside you keeps whispering, "I don't belong here." You laugh at the right moments. You nod when others speak. You even try to mirror their energy. But deep down, it feels like you are wearing a life that was never tailored for you. And here's the strange part. No one else seems to notice it. They move through life like they've found their place, like the world was built for them. But you feel like a visitor in a place you were never fully introduced to. So you start questioning yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I thinking too much? Why does everything feel deeper for me than it does for them? And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to shrink yourself just to feel normal. But what if I told you, this feeling you're trying to escape is actually the beginning of understanding who you really are? What if the problem was never that you are different, but that you've been trying too hard to be like everyone else? Because somewhere inside you, there is a voice that doesn't think like the crowd, doesn't feel like the crowd, and refuses to settle for surface-level living. And that voice is not your weakness. It is your awakening. Part 1. The illusion of normal. Before we continue, think about this carefully, because this is where everything begins to shift. Most people don't actually feel normal. They just learn how to hide what makes them different. You were never born confused about yourself. You were taught confusion by comparison. As children, we were all unique, different. Thoughts, different curiosities, different ways of seeing the world. But slowly, life begins to apply pressure. School, society, expectations, all quietly teaching one message. Be like others if you want to belong. And so you start adjusting, not because you are lost, but because belonging feels safer than truth. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming yourself is not encouraged. It is resisted by everything around you. So you adapt, you perform, you learn what makes people approve of you, and slowly your real self becomes something you only visit in silence, not something you live. But here is the hidden cost. The more you try to become normal, the more you feel disconnected from yourself. It's like living in a house where every room has been redesigned by someone else. Eventually you forget what your original home looked like, and then comes the confusion. Why do I feel different from everyone? The truth is, because you are finally sensing the distance between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. And that feeling is not a problem. It is the first moment of awareness. A quiet rebellion of your inner self saying, "I cannot live like this forever." Part 2. The hidden depth you were never taught to understand. Before you label your difference as a weakness, there's something you need to understand, something most people never discover in time. Not everyone experiences life at the same depth. Some people move through reality like a surface-level stream, quick reactions, quick emotions, quick forgetting. But others feel everything like it has weight, texture, meaning. You might notice it in yourself. A simple conversation stays in your mind longer than it should. A small rejection feels heavier than it looks. A quiet moment suddenly becomes something you overthink for hours. And then you ask yourself, why am I like this? But what if the real question is not, why am I like this? But what kind of mind am I living with? Carl Jung explored this idea when he spoke about the inner world, the idea that some people are naturally more reflective, more symbolic, more sensitive to meaning beneath the surface. You don't just hear words, you feel what is behind them. You don't just see people, you sense their contradictions. You don't just live moments, you replay them, analyze them, extract meaning from them. And this depth, it can feel like a burden when you are surrounded by people who only skim the surface of life. You start thinking you are too much, too emotional, too thoughtful, too intense, but in reality you are simply not designed for shallow engagement with existence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good." But most people never look within. They stay distracted outside, and that creates a silent gap between you and them. Not because you are superior, not because you are broken, but because your awareness goes deeper than the environment you are standing in. And here's the painful irony. The deeper you feel, the more alone you sometimes become, because depth is not always immediately understood. So you begin to hide it. You simplify yourself. You laugh louder than you feel. You speak lighter than you think, just to blend in. But inside, something never settles. Because you were never meant to live only on the surface of yourself. You were meant to understand it. And once you begin to accept this depth instead of fighting it, you stop asking, "Why am I different?" and start realizing, "This is how I perceive truth." Part 3. The loneliness that actually shapes you. There is a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people who don't feel what you feel. You sit in a room full of voices, yet none of them seem to speak the language of your inner world. They talk about things that pass quickly, trends, distractions, surface emotions, while your mind is quietly wrestling with something deeper, something harder to explain. And in that moment, you don't just feel alone, you feel unseen. This is where many people begin to believe something dangerous, that something is wrong with me. But what if loneliness is not rejection? What if it is refinement? Friedrich Nietzsche once suggested that certain types of suffering don't destroy you. They shape you. Not all pain is meaningless. Some of it is sculpting you into a form you cannot yet recognize. Think about it like this. Gold is not purified in comfort. It is refined in fire. And certain minds, certain hearts, are simply built to pass through deeper fires than others. Your loneliness is not empty space. It is space being prepared. Because when you don't fully belong to the crowd, something else happens. You start belonging to yourself. At first, it feels like isolation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to be understood by everyone. You start observing more, speaking less, thinking deeper, and slowly, something unexpected begins to grow inside you. Clarity. Not the loud kind, not the confident, performative kind, but a quiet, uncomfortable clarity that comes from being forced inward. You begin to notice patterns others miss. You understand emotions that others avoid. You see through illusions that most people comfortably live inside. But this awareness has a price, because the more you see, the less you can pretend. And the less you pretend, the less you feel connected to environments built on pretending. So yes, you feel alone, but not because you are disconnected from life, because you are being disconnected from illusion. And here is the shift that changes everything. Loneliness is not always absence of people. Sometimes it is the presence of self. And when you finally stop resisting it, you realize something powerful. You were not being isolated from others. You were being introduced to yourself. Part 4. The real reason you were never meant to fit in. There comes a point where something inside you grows tired, not of people, not of life, but of pretending. Pretending that you don't feel too deeply, pretending that certain conversations don't bore your soul, pretending that you belong in spaces that constantly feel slightly out of tune with who you are. And one day, quietly, without drama, you stop forcing it. You stop adjusting your thoughts to be more acceptable. You stop shrinking your emotions to make others comfortable. You stop translating your inner world into something easier for others to digest. And in that moment, something strange happens. The pressure lifts, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting your own nature. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Because acceptance means you can no longer hide behind excuses, masks, or borrowed identities, and this is where the truth reveals itself. You were never meant to fit in, not because you are above others, but because your perception was never designed for imitation. You are not here to echo the world. You are here to observe it, question it, feel it differently, and, at times, stand slightly apart from it so you can see what others miss while being inside it. Think of it like this. A lighthouse does not belong to the sea, but without it, ships lose direction in the dark. Its purpose is not to merge with the waves, but to remain steady while everything else moves. And this is what your difference really is. Not a flaw, not a mistake, not a social mismatch, but a different way of seeing reality, one that naturally distances you from noise so you can hear something deeper beneath it. At first, this awareness feels isolating, but over time, it becomes grounding. Because when you stop asking, "Why don't I fit in?" you start asking a better question. What am I actually here to understand? And slowly, life stops being about fitting in and starts being about aligning with yourself. You begin to notice that not every space deserves your presence. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every connection is meant to define you. And in that clarity, something powerful happens. You stop chasing belonging and start building understanding. And that is when the final realization arrives. You were never meant to feel like everyone else, because if you did, you would never question anything. And without questioning, there is no depth, no awakening, no becoming. So the feeling you once feared, the feeling of being different, is no longer a wound. It becomes a reminder that you are awake in a world that is still learning how to see. Maybe the real reason you feel different is not because you are lost, but because you are slowly waking up from everything that once tried to make you the same. And if that feeling returns again tonight, quiet, heavy, familiar, don't run from it. Sit with it, because sometimes the most important people in history were not the ones who fit in. They were the ones who finally understood why they never could.